Yes, so I maybe got a bit ahead of myself there. So what I do want to do now is attach my wires to my motors, and I'll come back to the pins later. Okay, now motors, we can attach any polarity, positive, negative, or whatever, either way around, but we do want to be consistent just for our own control later. Okay, so I'm going to go with red on the right because RR, and black on the left. Okay, now you'll notice that my motors come with this little plastic bit to help hold it in to the casings. I'm going to take that off, not to take the motor out, but just so that I don't burn that plastic casing along the way. And then I'm going to try and put the wires, oops, I'm going to try and move the wires through these little spaces here. Now, you might want to try and even just like trim down your wires a little bit if they're too thick. I think the wires I've got are pushing it a little bit in terms of how thick they are, but they should work still nonetheless. Okay, so I'm going to go red through the right. There we go. And I'm going to go the black one through the left. Maybe. Oh, it's a bit tighter. Now here I might use my tweezers to get it into the right place a bit better. Okay, I'm going to use that to hold the metal spacing and try not to stab myself. Get somewhere now. And you see it's not perfect, so I might want to try and just like shave down that wire a bit just so that it fits through better, but I think it's going to be okay. It's getting in more than enough to give it the power that it needs. My only concern is that I'm maybe making the connection to the motor a bit weaker, so just be careful not to tear off those metal hoops that are going to your motor. Because they're quite useful as well. Okay, so it's getting somewhere. There we go, that's it now. Okay, so I've got those two going through the spaces there. Now, here's a question for the really good people. Is it better to double back so that it's kind of hooked round, less likely to fall off, but is that going to cause issues? Well, that's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to try and hook them back round the way. So that they're on there proper. Okay, so I'm going to flip that back round. There we go. And I'm going to try and get it just as a little hook almost, so that later on it's got something that's going to basically hold it in place. Alrighty. So there we go. Now I could probably cut off this extra end here a bit. Let's see if that's going to go. But let's do the same on the other side. I'm just going to double back. And squish it in. There we go. This one maybe doesn't need the end cut off, but you see that way it's pretty solidly attached. Okay, so I maybe want to just cut off this extra length I've got here. So it's doubled back, and let's just trim it a little bit there. There we go. Now, arguably we could have left the galvanizing to this point. The reason I don't is I find that when I try to put an ungalvanized wire through those little holes, it tends to fray, and you end up with this whole frayed. It can be quite hard to put a frayed. Drop my phone. It can be quite hard to put a frayed section through those little holes. Anyone who's ever tried to do like a needle and thread will know my pain, but it works. Okay, so just make sure it's on right. Again, it's better to take the time and get it going well now than to have to deal with it in a more annoying way later. Okay, and then what I want to do again is just get my soldering iron, but first again I probably want to put on a little bit of flux just onto those sections to get the solder moving, especially for the solder that's already on there. Oops. And that will help get things moving a little bit. And I've got my solder wire ready on the side here, and so if I get my soldering iron and we start heating things up on here. It's pretty good. Oh, and the solder's already on its way from the side bit there. Now again, we want to be heating up both sides, so you don't want to just heat up the wire, you want to heat up the metal attachment on the motor as well, okay, because that way it will stick together much better than if you're just heating up the wire, in which case it will just stick to the wire. Yeah, so the solder seems to be attracted to the heat in some ways, so if we can just heat up the whole section, that's way better and probably a lot more secure than doing it the other way. There we go, yeah, okay, that's it now. It's really attaching on there quite nicely. Perfect. And the other side, I'm going to do the same. Now, probably want to squish that down a little bit first. Sorry, I'm not sure you guys can see super close. I'm just going to make it so that it's properly squished onto the connector there. I don't want to hang you off a bit. Okay, like that. A bit of flux, and I'll put some flux on it, but I think I just knocked it off. Okay, put a bit of flux on there. There we go. And then let's heat it up and get it going. And again, we want to heat up both sides, both the motor pin and the wire, so that we get the nicest connection. There we go, and that's pretty snazzy. Good. Yay, okay, I mean that's pretty good. Now you might want to test your motor at this point just to make sure it's all working. Just put a bit of power through those wires, nothing too heavy, just 5 volts or something, and just make sure that the connection works before you start playing any further. But I'm reasonably confident mine's going to go, but it just saves you a lot of time debugging stuff later. Okay, good. So I'm quite happy with that as it is. And then what I'm wanting to be doing is I want to be taking this other end, and basically I'm going to get my motor shield. So I've got to decide which motor is going where. Now I don't have to separate my wires, but sometimes helps a bit. Okay, so I've got my motor shield here. So if you can see that, okay. Just try to get the light correct. Okay, and what I can do is I can loosen these little attachments here. Apologies, my hand's getting in the way of the thing. But I can loosen these little attachments here, which is pretty easy. There we go. Yeah, it's good to have the right size of screwdriver. I've got one of those ones that has all the different heads. It makes life easier. There we go. And then what I want to do is put it in the side I wanted. So I've said that the red's going to go on the right, black's going to go on the left. So let's keep up that system. Red's going on the right and black's going on the left. Now again, we might have to adjust these later to get it going the directions we want, because we want all the motors to be pulling in the same way. So hopefully if I connect it in the same way, chances are it will work. Now all you have to do with this one is just see those little spaces there? You just got to push those wires into those spaces. Now if they don't fit in, then you need to loosen the wire, the screw at the top a bit more. But it should be in, but it should feel a bit of tightness as well, okay? Just so that it's all good. Okay, so it should be something like that. And then if I get my screwdriver, I can then tighten it in and lock it into place. Same with the other side as well. Okay, so now I have my motor connected into my motor shield and everything's been soldered, so it should be reasonably tough and secure. Okay, now next I'm going to do that for all my motors. I might not attach them now because it becomes a bit of a hassle, because the next bit I want to do is my pins, and so I want this board to be fairly free, so maybe I'll wait on the other motors, but then I want to add pins all the way into my board down here. We'll do that in the next video. Okay, good luck.